The DevOps Foundation Course. Lesson 4. DevOps and Other Frameworks Part 1. Agile. Welcome to Lesson 4. We're going to start to look at how DevOps works with other frameworks and methodologies. In this lesson, we'll look at how DevOps practices relate to and draw on Agile, Scrum. DevOps isn't a framework, methodology, or based on a single body of knowledge. Successful DevOps is built on the practices and integration of a number of frameworks and methodologies, elements of which may already exist in your organization. This diagram shows the three main areas we'll study in this lesson and Lesson 5. Click on each one to learn a bit more. IT Service Management, or ITSM, describes the processes and frameworks used to govern ops activities. DevOps relies on these processes, but may implement them differently. For example, change management may be adapted to fit an organization working with continuous deployment and more frequent releases. Lean production transformed manufacturing in the 1980s. Lean practices allowed organizations to achieve faster lead times, better quality, and competitive edge. DevOps applies lean IT principles to dev and ops, generating productivity and economic value for the business. This can break the downward spiral of failing products and constant fixes. Agile thinking and practices focus on small teams working in high-trust environments, with small batch sizes and frequent releases. This approach can significantly improve the productivity of development organizations. DevOps draws on agile thinking and practices, but bridges them to work outside the dev environment too. Scrum is an agile framework, but being agile is more than just Scrum. Let's start by looking at DevOps and Agile. The dictionary definition of Agile includes the ability to move quickly and being well coordinated. Alternatively, it can refer to the ability to think quickly, solve problems, and have new ideas. An Agile enterprise is a fast-moving, flexible, and robust company that is capable of rapid responses to unexpected challenges, events, and opportunities. Agile enterprises are built on policies and processes that welcome and facilitate speed and change. Agile software development methods deliver working software in smaller and more frequent increments. This term will be important for your exam and for your understanding, so please pay careful attention to it. Agile software development includes a group of methods in which requirements and solutions evolve through collaboration between self-organizing cross-functional teams. Agile software development practices are enablers of DevOps. They are, however, mainly applied to dev today. Remember, for DevOps to be successful, practices have to be adopted that cross both dev and ops. Agile transformation within an organization will encourage an evolution and may include moving away from more traditional ways of working. Cultural change can be difficult, and everyone needs to understand what is happening and why. For a real transformation, organizations need to honestly assess where they are and look at where they want to be. They also need to accept failure. Not all the solutions they try will work. Implementing a tool or a framework or a method, like ITIL, Scrum, or Kanban, will not necessarily make an organization agile. One way organizations can implement improvements is to adopt a plan, do, check, act approach, shown in the diagram on screen. Using this approach, any improvements or changes that are implemented are checked to see if they are delivering results. Momentum is maintained, and changes are made in small incremental ways so that staff don't get overwhelmed. On the screen, you can see the Agile Manifesto. This was developed in 2001 and documents the underlying concepts of Agile software development. The manifesto was developed by a group of 17 practitioners from different programming methodologies. There were many areas where they didn't agree, but the consensus areas can be seen here. It's important to look at the wording of the manifesto. It says that there is value in the items on the right, but emphasizes the value of the items on the left more. Some practitioners have misinterpreted the manifesto to mean that they, for example, no longer need to produce documentation. That's not what the manifesto is saying. The manifesto encourages developers to find a balance between just enough documentation and the ability to produce and maintain working software. Agile ways of working are a response to changes in how IT is expected to work. Close collaboration between programmers and business experts makes sure that IT delivers what is actually wanted, which is not necessarily what was asked for. Ongoing, preferably face-to-face communication, helps to make sure that requirements are clearly understood, and small, self-organizing teams mean the message doesn't get lost and value can be delivered quickly. Frequent delivery of code and increased automation means that changes to business requirements are not the end of the world. They can easily be incorporated and the product adapted based on feedback. Many organizations still develop software using a waterfall approach. Waterfall and Agile are often presented as opposite ends of the spectrum. You can see some compare and contrast features on screen here. Waterfall is employed in many large organizations because it fits in with larger enterprise processes like business case development and budgeting. However, it can take much longer to get anything deployable or to receive feedback, so it's more difficult to know when things are going wrong. It's important to remember that Agile can be adopted via evolution, not revolution. Many organizations start with one project or one team and work out from there. Let's think about Agile versus Waterfall with an exercise. Plan to spend 20 minutes on this exercise, and don't forget there'll be a suggested solution in your exercise solution document. You can see the Agile and Waterfall characteristics on screen. List 5 benefits and 5 possible disadvantages for each approach. What is your own organization using? Does it meet requirements? Agile development is being used more and more widely, but there are still some occasions when waterfall is still appropriate. These could include, for example, projects where requirements are clearly defined and fixed at the start. Projects where customer involvement is difficult. Projects that need to be very tightly controlled for time or for budget. And projects that require robust documentation or even an audit trail. As we mentioned earlier, Agile practices might be adopted in a subset of the business. This allows the organization to experiment and learn, identify any constraints or limitations, and carry out a proof of concept. The waterfall process is still the standard approach in industries that have extreme business sensitivity to areas like privacy, data security, independence, process transparency, or certain regulations and legislation. Even these types of organizations might benefit from some elements of Agile practices. DevOps practices like version control, continuous integration, and continuous delivery can still help to improve stability and quality. Popular Agile software development methodologies include extreme programming, XP, Kanban, lean software development, and Scrum. We'll be looking at some of these soon. Let's start with Scrum. Scrum is an iterative and incremental Agile framework for completing complex projects. Remember, Scrum is Agile, but Agile isn't just Scrum. Scrum is the most prominent of the Agile frameworks, but Agile thinking goes beyond Scrum practices. When we discuss Scrum here, we'll be introducing some Agile concepts and vocabulary. These might also be used in other methodologies like extreme programming, but in different ways. Here, you can see the key components of Scrum: roles, 4 artifacts, and 5 meetings. We're going to review some of these in detail, and you can always do further research on Scrum if you feel it is a valid approach for your organization. This screen shows a different view of the key components of Scrum. Scrum represents a significant shift in terms of how projects are managed. the level of change should not be underestimated by an organization seeking to adopt Scrum. Self-organizing teams, for example, can be chaotic. People are used to being told what to do, and in some cases, even how to do it. They may find autonomy challenging and even frightening. Doing work in smaller increments and demonstrating work along the way is also a different approach. Staff need to be coached and empowered to help them adjust. The Scrum roles, artifacts, and events all have a purpose and are essential to successful Scrum. Rules apply to the events and to the relationships and interactions between them. You can see some of the key Scrum terms here. Click on each one to learn about what it means. Remember, while Scrum was originally intended for software development, it has been successfully applied to other complex projects. A product backlog is a prioritized list of all requirements for a system, documented as backlog items. Inputs to the product backlog can come from many sources, but it is owned by the product owner. The product owner is responsible for prioritizing the items in the list. Requirements could be functional requirements. These are software features. In other words, what do we want it to do? Non-functional requirements relate to how the software will operate. For example, levels of availability, capacity, or security requirements. Requirements are often written as user stories, a simple statement from the user's view that describes the who, what, and why of a requirement. During a sprint planning meeting, backlog items are moved from the backlog into a sprint based on the product owner's priorities. An impediment is anything that prevents a team member from performing their role as efficiently as possible. The Scrum Master will try and remove impediments so the team can work optimally. A Scrum Master is not a traditional team leader or project manager. Their role is to make sure the Scrum process is used as intended. They will coach on and enforce the Scrum rules, challenge the team to improve, remove impediments, and chair key meetings. The Scrum Master role does not have the people management or budget responsibilities often allocated to a project manager. The Scrum Master also does not manage the product. Remember, it's the product owner who ultimately decides the priorities for a product and what needs to be done. A sprint is a time-boxed iteration of work during which an increment of product functionality is developed and implemented. Sprints are typically 2 to 4 weeks long, but can be as short as 1 week. The product owner is responsible for managing the product backlog. Their role is to maximize product value, and they determine the priorities and what gets done in what order. The product owner represents the business or user community and is responsible for working with the user group to determine what features will be in the product release. The Scrum team is a self-organizing cross-functional team. It is optimally composed of 7 members, plus or minus 2 people. A rule of thumb is the pizza rule. If you would need to order 2 pizzas to feed the team, your team is too big. Scrum team members are cross-trained so that there can be greater flexibility when allocating resources. They are self-organizing, so they decide how to carry out work within the team. Remember, the Scrum team is working in a high-trust environment. Self-organizing teams decide how to split work to take advantage of each team member's strengths. They can make decisions and adapt to changing circumstances. The team as a whole is accountable for delivery and is as autonomous and empowered as possible for the organization. Scrum team members are ideally co-located, and the team needs to have a balance of skills with no sub-teams operating within the team. Scrum teams will have daily Scrum meetings. These are 15-minute daily meetings focused around 3 questions. What have I done since the last meeting? What will I do before the next meeting? What impediments prevent me from performing my work as efficiently as possible? Remember, It is the role of the Scrum Master to try to remove impediments. Daily Scrum meetings make work visible. They are often stand-up meetings held without seats to emphasize the short, practical nature of the meeting. They are held at the same time and location every day, and only members of the Scrum team can speak. Any longer discussions about problems will be held after the meeting. So, what does DevOps take from Agile? DevOps and Agile can complement each other, helping to deploy working functionality into production faster. DevOps extends the scope of Agile and applies the principles to both Dev and Ops. The diagram you can see on screen shows how operations might be involved in sprint planning and sprint activities. Early involvement of operations brings many benefits. They can provide operational requirements early on and help to ensure all environments are ready at the right time. This reduces delays. Agile uses a term, definition of done, to determine when the coding of a feature is complete. This is an important Scrum term. From a DevOps perspective, done means fully tested and operating in production as designed. The goal of a sprint is to produce a potentially releasable product. One very important point to note is that this product isn't always released. It has the potential to be released, but it might instead be used to get feedback or demonstrate a concept to help clarify requirements for a future sprint. We have said that the essence of DevOps is communication, collaboration, and integration. DevOps can increase organizational agility by breaking down silos, improving constraints, taking a unified approach to systems engineering, applying Agile principles across development and operations, sharing knowledge, skills, experience, and data, recognizing the criticality of automation, and deploying faster with fewer errors. To summarize, DevOps extends Agile principles beyond the boundaries of the software to the entire delivered service. Here's a quick quiz to test what you've learned. Good luck! You've completed Lesson 4. In this lesson, we studied how DevOps practices relate to and draw on Agile, Scrum. In the next lesson, we'll look at how DevOps complements lean thinking and IT service management.